It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, today we're going to jump in that gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I want to share my thoughts on RICOH's first quarter for FY2025. And I have to ask RICOH right off the bat, do you just not care about operating profit margin? You just don't care, because it sure seems like you don't. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the first quarter of FY2025. Top line revenue for RICOH is $3.9 billion. Operating profit of 2.2%, $85.4 million. I'm sure by now that Konica's already called up RICOH to congratulate him. Hey, congratulations, you had 100% improvement in operating profit margin from the first quarter of 2024. And of course, Konica could be right, but that'd be a silly thing to brag about. Because in the first quarter of 2024, well, RICOH had a 1.1%. And the first quarter of 2025, they had a 2.2%. Definitely 100% improvement. And we know that Konica likes to brag about stuff. Maybe they're hoping that RICOH will start bragging about nonsense as well. But ladies and gentlemen, you know, I went back to the year 2015. You know, in 2015, RICOH had a 4.6% operating profit margin. And since 2015, all the way through their current forecast for FY 2025, it's been downhill. FY 2025 forecast, they're forecasting operating profit margin of 3.1%. I don't even get that. Well, they get in the boardroom and somebody says, hey, you know what? We had a 4.6% operating profit margin back in 2015, and we need to get to 4.7% and beat it. I mean, we're doing all this services business. Billions of dollars worth of services business. We're selling intellect and all this stuff. We should be able to get more money, right? We should be able to make more operating profit. And then they all disagree. Oh, no, that's crazy talk. Let's just go in at 3.1%. Folks, I mean, it's nuts. Let's look at this digital services business for RICOH. $3 billion for the first quarter, 79% of RICOH's total revenues. And folks, listen to this. Difference in one-time expenses of 5 billion yen in quarter 1, 2025 and 3 billion yen in quarter 1 of 2024. They should have just said one-time expenses grew by 60%, right? I mean, folks, and these one-time expenses, you know, RICOH's not the only one that does this, but we talk about one-time expenses, it seems like all the time. It's kind of like the 100-year storm, which comes every year. I mean, seriously with this. They did $3 billion worth of revenue, 79% of their total revenues of the company, in this digital services category, which is office services, IT, and all that hard, complicated stuff, and their office printing. And they had an operating profit of 0.23%, $6.8 million operating profit on $3 billion. And they don't think this is a problem. I think it's a massive problem. Ladies and gentlemen, $1.4 billion office services for the first quarter, $1.4 billion office printing. Again, 0.23% operating profit. This is insanity. I don't even know how the leadership accepts this continuously disgustingly low operating profit. I don't even know how they accept this. They say in the office services, they're given a little bullet point. Listen to this. In Japan, revenues increased significantly on value-added proposals for PC replacements. What the hell is a value-added proposal for a PC replacement? We're going to give it to you below cost? We figure if we give you all these PCs below cost, then you'll have more stuff to look at and then print. I mean, what, folks, what is a value-added proposal for PC replacements? And whatever it is, it sure isn't contributing to any kind of operating profit. Listen to this. Operating profit excluding one-time factors. Well, if we exclude the one-time factors that seem to come all the time, we would have had a $40.7 million operating profit, or 1.3%. They think that's a home run. Okay, yeah, if we didn't have these one-time expenses, we could have had a 1.3% operating profit. Even though $1.4 billion of that revenue is on services, stuff we should be getting a lot of money for. I mean, I just don't understand how they let this happen. I just don't get it. Ladies and gentlemen, in the $1.4 billion of office services, $655.4 million of it was reoccurring revenue. 47% of their office services revenue is reoccurring. What's the operating profit on the reoccurring revenue? This is why you got to break it apart. This is why I got so excited when Xerox started breaking those numbers apart, so you can see this stuff, because this is just ridiculous. How in the world does a company do $3 billion worth of revenue, $1.4 billion in office services, $1.4 billion in MFPs, and have a 0.23% operating profit? 6.8. It's just insanity. I wanted to look at the Americas. And this is really for Canon. So if you work at Canon, pay attention right now. And then send today's episode to the leaders over at Canon and say, hey, watch the end of the day with Ray. He's talking about how much revenue RICOH produces in Americas around IT infrastructure and IT services. Because, folks, we already know, Canon already does workflow applications and stuff. They're already doing digital services for customers. They talked about how they want to add IT services, and I'm thinking that's IT infrastructure and IT services. Well, for the first quarter, IT infrastructure for RICOH was $18.3 million in Americas, and IT services was $21.7 million in Americas. The run rate for both of those units for the year is $163 million. I mean, Canon, what are you thinking? Because I believe that all of the operating profit losses that RICOH gets are coming from their services business. They have to be able to sell the MFPs, right? That $1.4 billion in the products has to be, I mean, come on. It has to be in the services. And I believe the reason is because they're not accounting for their cost. And I believe it's those two buckets, IT infrastructure and IT services, is where they're not accounting for their costs. I don't believe they're out there giving away DocuWare. Well, maybe they are. Hey, we want to give you DocuWare free, and we'll spend all kinds of money putting it in because we figure you'll scan more, and we could charge you for scans. I don't know what they're thinking, but at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, holy crap. In the business processes category, listen to this. Operational efficiencies improved and pricing controls offset lower sales and boosted earnings. What the hell? Seriously? I mean, whoever's putting this thing together, hey, can you use the word boosted in there somewhere? We need a positive word, like boosted. Could you get like boosted earnings? What boosted earnings? Ladies and gentlemen, they did $3 billion worth of revenue in their digital services business unit at a 0.23% operating profit. I don't think there was any earnings boosted. I believe the problem at RICOH is that they are excited about a 34 to 35% gross profit on everything they sell. That's got to be what it is. And folks, 35% gross profit on selling the hardware, maybe that's okay. But when you're selling services, it's got to be like 60%. And I think when they put these proposals together, it's, let's just put 35% and that's all we need. And then they don't account for the human capital cost. Because when you start delivering complicated services, it's really about intellect, intelligence, high-paid people doing complicated things, right? Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the Americas and you just focus on the IT services and the IT infrastructure, it's $163 million per year. So Canon, that's what you'd be getting if you brought IT services to the United States, or to the Americas, excuse me. And we all know that, RICOH ran around and bought up a bunch of IT companies. Maybe that's something that Canon wants to do. They got this company in Canada, let's bring them down to America, and then we'll start buying up a whole bunch of IT companies. Don't follow this plan, because I believe that this will be future impairment charges for RICOH. I've been saying that for a while. But Canon, here's the question. What the hell are you thinking? You want to bring IT infrastructure and IT services? RICOH's got it at $163 million. They've been doing it for years. That's the number in Americas for them. Okay, that's like 1.1% of RICOH's total revenues, by the way. And for Canon at $30 billion, it would be like 0.5% of your revenues. What in the hell are you even thinking? Why would you even want to do this? And RICOH, if you're so excited and so proud of all these services that you're delivering to the marketplace, nearly $1.5 billion per quarter, maybe you should start sharing the details around the operating profit of just that category. I want to talk really quick about their graphics communication business. They did $442.2 million in sales for the first quarter, had an operating profit of 5.4% or $23.8 million. The commercial printing piece was $373.8 million. Industrial print was $68 million. Again, I asked the same question to Konica. Why the hell are you in industrial print? It's not that big of a deal. But folks, I wanted to do a side-by-side comparison between RICOH Graphics Communication and Konica Minolta's professional print business. The numbers are really, really interesting. So graphics communication for RICOH for the first quarter was $442.2 million. For the first quarter for Konica Minolta for professional print, it was $426.5 million. Pretty close, right? If you look at the production print for Konica Minolta, it was $359.6 million. For our friends over there at RICOH, it was $373.8 million. Of course, in Konica Minolta's case, they got $98.2 million in marketing in that numbers. I don't know what the hell that's all about. But still pretty close, right? You see that? But here's the thing that's interesting. Industrial print for the first quarter for RICOH was $68 million. For the first quarter of Konica Minolta, it was $67 million. It's just not enough money, in my opinion. These are $300 million a year businesses for both of these players. And a lot of people in the industry are probably asking the same question I'm asking. Why the hell are you guys even in industrial print? And maybe it's time to get the hell out. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to also do the same exercise regarding Konica Minolta's Digital Workplace Business Unit and RICOH's Digital Services Business Unit for the first quarter. In RICOH's case, the top line revenue was at $3 billion, $1.4 billion office services, $1.4 billion in office printing. They have an other category, which is the rest of that. But at the end of the day, when you look at the revenue over there at Konica Minolta for the quarter, it was $937.9 million. So it's quite a bit less than the $3 billion that our friends at RICOH are doing. But when you look at the DWDX at Konica Minolta, and that's the IT business for Konica Minolta and all their application services and all the stuff they sell that's not the print machines, right? It was $138.4 million for the first quarter. And our friends at RICOH for their first quarter for office services, which would be the same as Konica Minolta's DWDX, was $1.4 billion. So way, way larger. But folks, at the end of the day, these folks just don't produce enough operating profit to be doing all these services. In Konica Minolta's case, that services business isn't really growing at any kind of level. They really should just get completely out of it. All the IT stuff anyway. And our friends over at RICOH, they got to figure out how to be more profitable, because even if they didn't have those one-time expenses, it would have only been 1.3%. So in conclusion, what are you accomplishing, RICOH? You told the whole world you want to be a digital services company, but you don't want to share with the whole world your operating profit around those digital services, and I think you should. You owe it to the world, because we're looking at your numbers and we're scratching our head. And everybody's asking the same damn question. How in the hell can you produce billions of dollars in services revenue and have operating profit that's so disgustingly low? And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck there, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.